I think I look like I'm wearing a smoking jacket. At least I have to. By the way, I'm expecting a package at the door, so I have my
Okay.
camera set up in case I have to leave.
Yeah.
In case I have to go get it. See, look at my security camera, Bloom.
Oh, you're compromising the security.
I know. I
That's
think
good.
it's already compromised. Anyway, it is the Audible, and what a wild and woolly start for Week 5. It's Tampa and Chicago, and I say wild and woolly because, well, who's going to play? You saw the short week practice report. We're recording on a Wednesday morning, just full disclosure for everybody out there. And you saw the practice report from yesterday, Bloom, was like no receivers practicing, basically. We know that Leonard Fournette's probably not going to play. We know that LaShawn McCoy's probably not going to play. So that means plenty of Ronald Jones, and that means Keyshawn Vaughn doing his thing, perhaps getting into what the heck flex territory. Don't say that very fast. Sorry, Joe, for suggesting that. Anyway. So with the Tampa side of things, it's very interesting, Bloom, because right now we're kind of left wondering, okay, who's really going to play, who's going to be out there, and what does that mean for your fantasy team?
Yeah, we look at this matchup, and it's an interesting one because you have Chicago, whose defense has been pretty good. The offense hasn't been good. They made a quarterback change. Tampa, whose defense has been good but has holes, and also their offense is coming on. See, these are 2 3-1 teams. This is a power matchup, at least in the standings. It should be an interesting game. Tampa, we have Tom Brady warming up, really coming on. I don't think we're going to see Chris Godwin. 4 of the receivers on the injury report, we should see Mike Evans. And we play Mike Evans if we see him. Scott Miller had that touchdown. So we had 2 good weeks, 2 off weeks for Scotty Miller. He's the closest to what tech flex among the wide receivers. Justin Watson, it's a chest injury. I think that Miller's ahead of him in the pecking order. Depending on the status of Miller and Watson, it may nudge you towards giving a chance to Rob Gronkowski or Cameron Brate. Pour one out for O.J. Howard. Maybe the targets get narrower, the target tree, and a tight end is relevant. But the thing is, it's still 2 tight ends. It's like whatever, Hydra, right? Cut one head off of the tight end, which isn't doing much for Tampa, and another one just grows.
Right.
Maybe it is Keyshawn Vaughn. Sounds like Leonard Fournette is a game-time decision, but they're preparing to play without him. I think that means even if he does play, I don't expect a big role. This is Keyshawn Vaughn's audition. This is his audition in the passing game. And at Vanderbilt, he was like a check down receiver. He wasn't a highly skilled route runner. I wouldn't say that he's a plus receiving running back, but if he doesn't drop the ball, he's better than Ronald Jones. And Tom Brady likes to target the running backs. So this is absolutely a big opportunity for Keyshawn Vaughn's value to grow, and an opportunity for Tom Brady to show us that he's going to be an every week fantasy quarterback, because if he can do it without Godwin against the Chicago defense, which has been pretty stingy, then we're looking back, seats at those excuses. Pass interference in week 1, drops in week 2. In week 3, they just ran Denver out of their own building, so they didn't have to pass in the second half. Now, last week, 5 touchdowns. So is that closer to the norm for Brady than those weeks with the excuses? Certainly, if he can put up a good fantasy game against Chicago, we're going to start believing him. And we're going to start believing in this Tampa team as a Super Bowl contender again. These are the cycles of 2020.
The cycles of 2020, Bloom. By the way, I believe we were talking about Hydra before the show. But anyway, when we look at Chicago, doesn't it seem like these 2 teams are going in different directions? As you mentioned, they got the same record, but you have a Tampa team that's surging. You have a Chicago team that's trying to figure things out now with Nick Foles, and now with more Lamar Miller. Although, not for this game, probably plenty of David Montgomery still. But what fantasy assets can you trust, especially when Nick Foles is going to be facing that ferocious front 7 of that Tampa Bay Todd Bowles blitz you until you cry type of defense? It seems like Tampa has some excitement building. Chicago has some nervousness and trepidation.
Yeah, we're relying on the defense here. And you just want Nick Foles to play safer football. You don't want to put this game on Nick Foles' shoulders, but you do need him to make some passing plays on 3rd down. And it is a Tampa defense, while it is a ferocious run defense. No, this is not the game David Montgomery is going to get going as a runner. maybe as a receiver. He's basically an every down back now with Tariq Cohen out. So in PPR, Montgomery has at least some flex consideration. He's an okay running back too. Probably not a lot of upside here. Don't expect a rushing touchdown. Don't expect him to rack up yards on the ground. Maybe expect him to do some things as a receiver. But it's the deep game that is interesting. You just got to keep Nick Foles upright. Because what did we see last week, Cease, from the Tampa defense? Social distancing in the secondary, right? Mm-hmm. Tyron Johnson, Jalen Guyton with those long touchdowns. Is it a Darnell Mooney week? Maybe. Only need one of those to connect.
Got that speed.
Getting those air yards from Nick Foles. So that's one. So, you could see if the defense is playing well, just a long ball to Mooney touchdown, making that hold up. I mean, this is a game that they want to keep on that 17-13 kind of game script score they beat the Giants by. Last week it was 19-11. So, of course, Allen Robinson's going to be a good play here. And maybe he's not a true deep threat, but he's going to get fed by Nick Foles like he was last week. And then maybe Jimmy Graham, Donald Parham caught a touchdown last week. There was a nice game by Hunter Henry on a throwback to the tight end. The other thing is, again, see, when you're playing Tampa, just tear the goal line playbook pages with runs, just tear them out of the book and just passes.
Yeah,
which is they've been do that.
Right. And that's what they've been doing with Jimmy Graham at the goal line. Anyway, just post up so Jimmy Graham becomes interesting. Maybe we'll see Ryan Nall touch the ball. Maybe we'll see a little more Cordero Patterson. Like you said, Lamar Miller, I think he was signed to the practice squad. So Nick Foles, Tom Brady, those two guys have faced each other in a pretty big game before. I think Foles won that game.
Yeah, I think so, as a revenge for Tom Brady. By the way, Ryan, I am going to steal this.
Yeah.
I am going to, dude, this year is like fantasy football Mad Libs.
Yeah.
So says Ryan Olson. So Ryan, you own it, brother. But man alive, I'm going to repeat that and rinse, repeat, and keep saying that because yes, it is fantasy football Mad Libs as we get to Sunday's action. Carolina and Atlanta is the first game that we'll go over. And the Carolina side's got some interesting and nice assets. Of course, Mike Davis there working in replace of Chris McCaffrey. Teddy Bridgewater. I'm getting a lot of Teddy Bridgewater, bye week injury filler type quarterback. Grab Teddy. You have Detroit and Green Bay on bye, maybe others. We'll get to that in a little bit. But Carolina's side is a little bit more interesting, especially when you consider who they're playing this week in Atlanta.
Yeah. This is the game, actually, that I had in my note. Teams going in different directions. Passing on the escalator, right? One on the down escalator, one on the... You can do a high five or something on the escalator. Well, not now. Maybe with gloves on or something with COVID times. You get it, folks. Malls. Are malls still a thing? That's what I'm thinking of, right? When you're going up and down the escalator at the mall. Speaking of fantasy football Mad Libs, by the way, Cecil, you could probably have done Audible Mad Libs for a while. And my favorite one is a college all-star game, I remember watching him at Texas versus the Nation, NFLPA Bowl, the Shrine Game. This is a great opportunity for Carolina. See, you got to love it when these rebuilding teams are ahead of schedule, especially whenever they're piloted by someone like Teddy Bridgewater. So Bridgewater's coming on as a fantasy quarterback. Atlanta, the revolving door at safety, Demontre Casey with the Achilles. So that hurts. But Keanu Neal could be back this week. Ricardo Allen could be back this week. Still a secondary that you're worried about. Darqueze Dennard, who was saving the secondary cornerback, is on IR. A.J. Terrell, first-round pick, still on the COVID list. You have to think Teddy's looking good here. Maybe Takk McKinley could be back here, too, by the way. McKinley had 6 quarterback hits in the first game of the season against Russell Wilson. Also, an injury wrinkle here. Russell Okung could be back. So all that good stuff that Carolina did against Arizona last week was without Russell Okung, their best offensive lineman. Taylor Moton's really coming on there. So Teddy's looking like if you don't have an automatic starter at quarterback this week, you're replacing an Aaron Rodgers. Teddy's looking great in this matchup. So is Mike Davis. Reggie Bonifant goes on IR. So now it's Trenton Cannon as the backup.
Virginia State.
Yeah, and we'll see Christian McCaffrey. I think we're going to see McCaffrey back in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So if you don't need Mike Davis, if you're setting your lineup, by the way, if we have to say it, Buffalo, Tennessee, to Denver, New England, Kansas City, and the Raiders. COVID clouds hanging over those games. Set your lineup. Look at how it looks without players from those 6 teams and Green Bay and Detroit, just to be sure. So you probably are using Mike Davis. But that sell high window closing for Mike Davis soon, even though he's playing really well, which is why you can sell him high. Robbie Anderson, the clear number 1, getting those short targets that he can add run after catch yards to. DJ Moore, you have to like as a play this week, a wide receiver 3 flex upside play. That's what he is now. But this is a week Atlanta where the upside's there. Even Curtis Samuel's what the heck flex. And if you're really desperate, maybe Ian Thomas got a touchdown last week, and we saw what Big Bob Tonyan did against this Atlanta defense. I just love that this team is ahead of schedule, Cease. And by the way, again, what'd they say? What was what I saw? There's no plans to fire Dan Quinn today. That was right.
I looked at my calendar and it says not today.
It reminds me of Vince Scully, Andre Dawson's day to day, but aren't we all? Vince Scully's one of the all-time greats. So get Dan Quinn fired. That's a Steelers thing, right? Nobody gets coaches fired like the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
But Carolina moving on up in the division and maybe getting a head coach fired if they can win this game.
All right, let's talk about Atlanta's side of things and who can you trust, especially Calvin Ridley. Got me a 0 last week. Nobody cares about my team. But I have a public contest, Bloom. Do you know what it's called?
What?
It's called Sack Cecil. It's brought to you by my friends at Coase BMW, and it's for a trip for 2 to the BMW Center in California, where you can like drive on their test track and stuff. It's like an amazing contest, but every week people play against me, and I'm like, I can't have a 0, Calvin Ridley. Okay,
yeah,
reputation's on the line, and well, probably not zeros this week. It'll be a nice week for a bounce back from your Falcons that disappointed in week 4.
Right. Keep your coach keeps job. So we got Julio Jones watch, and Dr. Gene would tell us that the second injury is usually worse than the first. So if he missed one game with the hamstring and he aggravated it, probably looking at a multi-week absence. I don't expect we're going to see Julio Jones. Calvin Ridley, we just have to watch. And we've chronicled this over the years because Ridley in his first year was more like a sports car. I don't want to say BMW because I don't want to ruin your sponsorship. Although it would fit perfectly, right? Yeah, sports car where, if things get a little bit off, then he just can't perform at the level that you're used to. Last year, he did get back to that level after getting a little dinged. So we have cases we're watching here, really watching the practice participation. If he's limited and he's active, you're probably still going to play him. But if he doesn't do much in this matchup against Carolina, you know why. After we saw the goose egg on Monday night, or also watching Russell Gage, who nothing to watch on the injury report. We just thought he was going to be that struggle target. He was going to be that guy if the top 2 receivers weren't providing the production. Instead, it was Olamide Zacchaeus. So that's something to watch. If Jones is out and Ridley looks like he's going to be limited or out, maybe Zacchaeus is a better play than Russell Gage. And then there's Hayden Hurst. At least Hayden Hurst, I think, with the low bar at tight end, injury problems, Hurst looks like a good play. Gurley on paper looks like a good play. It's another poor run defense, although their run defense, Carolina, made Kenyon Drake look bad last week. So maybe it's not the smash spot. Again, with all this COVID stuff with 2 teams on bye, you're probably not having the luxury of deciding whether you're going to play Gurley at the flex, but you can make a case that Gurley is going to be a great play this week. If Atlanta is competitive in this game, you can make a case that based on the way these teams are headed, he's not going to be. Ryan's back at home, so you feel a little better about Matt Ryan, but you also see that Matt Ryan last week without Julio Jones, with a limited Calvin Ridley, was not a good fantasy play. They did score 2 touchdowns. Both went to Gurley at home. If you don't have an obvious quarterback play, probably looking at Matt Ryan, but also not surprised if Ryan struggles.
You know what I call Gurley this week, Bloom?
What's that?
The ever popular what the heck flex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could be the one.
Exactly.
Just throw him in as a what the heck, and you're like, it's either one. It's either a great story or, well, whatever. Okay, the chat room's asking about this. It is the big talk. The COVID talk Tennessee still testing positive. Buffalo at Tennessee up next. So we will talk about this game, Bloom. But as you mentioned, fantasy GMs must be ready to not play anybody from this game because, again, let's give us the latest. It's Wednesday morning. Some of us may have just rolled out of bed in their smoking jacket.
Nice.
It's not a robe, actually. Anyway, but let's talk about this very, serious situation, what it means, what it could mean, how to approach it in this silly little thing we call fantasy football.
Yeah. We'll see. The Titans can't reopen their facility. Cecil, if there's any indication, and this matches what we know about the NFL, right? If there's any indication, based on the protocol and guidelines they are following, which are subject to change, but based on the protocol and guidelines they're following, the NFL is not going to concede anything to teams that don't want to play, right? So if they say, if for instance, what I'm getting at, Cease, is if the Titans say, but we haven't had a chance to be in the building, but we haven't had a chance to practice. Like, let's say the Titans have no new positives Thursday, Friday, Saturday, leading this game Sunday. And I believe based on the NFL's guidelines, because they let the Patriots play under similar circumstances, right?
Right.
The Titans are going to have to play. I think that's how they're going to push it. Now, how will that affect the team? We'll get a lot of new interesting puzzles that we'll find out. How does a team play if they haven't practiced and been around each other? We'll see. But as we said, additional positives, I think you're not going to see this game played. And the word forfeit is looming in the air. That's my 83-year-old father. I love him so much. Talking to him yesterday, he's like, the Steelers should just they should just make the Titans forfeit that game. I don't know, but they might do it this week. Or at least keep this out there. And, your Titans then get a game where they can't, on the schedule where they can't help you. So all that stuff aside, this is a great matchup. Music City Miracle Revenge, right? This is a terrific matchup. Two presumptive playoff teams in the AFC. On the Buffalo side, it's the Josh Allen tour, and he can't be slowed down. Also, assuming Tennessee does play this game, Jeffrey Simmons is on the COVID list right now. Christian Fulton is on the COVID list right now. Simmons is a big addition after he came on in his rookie year. So, that makes things even easier for Josh Allen. We'll see if Zach Moss is back. I think that Devin Singletary did enough when Zach Moss was out to be the lead back. And maybe that's a 60-40 lead back, a 65-35 kind of lead back. Maybe Moss is still better suited for goal line carries, although Singletary did score last week. But Singletary is showing out very well. Don't look at the stats. Watch the game and you'll see. So Singletary is still, even if Moss is back this week, a running back to flex type, and you're seeing his value coming up, not just because Moss was out. Diggs is that clear alpha. So now we redrafted AC's. Diggs is what, second, third round pick, like he was last year, third round pick, and Josh Allen is setting him up. And it's a little bit of a heartbreak that Gabriel Davis, John Brown, Cole Beasley, and then Dawson Knox is in there too. They're playing so well that with Josh Allen that they're kind of canceling each other's value out because they're all good targets for Josh Allen. Now, Tennessee's pass defense is a bonanza for fantasy. So maybe that gets Davis. Well, Brown would be the first in the pecking order, Beasley second, Davis third. They all have what the heck flex value. They all have a high ceiling. Anybody catching passes from Josh Allen has a high ceiling this year, but it's a wide enough target tree with Devin Singletary also getting some targets. And if Zach Moss is out there, he can earn some targets. He's got good hands out of the backfield too. It's a little tougher to pick that secondary option. But if the game does get played, again, it'll be a weakened Tennessee defense, but also another chance for Buffalo to show that they've got an elite offense, they've got an elite quarterback, they've got an elite team.
Hasn't the NFL constantly succeeded in spite of itself? Like, they do everything about wrong, yet somehow, triumph.
Well, can I interject, Cease? I would say the more specific way I put it is the organization. What is it? 123 Park Avenue? Is that the address?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something Park Avenue address. It's a Park Avenue address. That's the point, right? Or the point is that the folks on Park Avenue, 345 Park. I'm sorry. The folks at 345 Park are very much getting enriched. The owners, I mean, let's face it, the NFL is basically the cartel of the 32 owners plus the league offices, right? Those people are succeeding in the sense that they're getting economically, financially enriched because of the efforts of the people who play the game and coach the game and make the game so intense and compelling. So it's that the upper level of the NFL succeeds because the folks actually playing the game lay it all out there. So they succeed in spite of themselves because of those folks.
Because of they're not their own labor.
Exactly.
Ooh, let's do that show, Bloom. Let's just do that.
We're getting closer and closer to it.
Oh yeah.
If the NFL season does end up paused, because with every new positive test that is floating out there, can we do a non-football show, like just to fill the time? Maybe we won't.
Yeah, probably not on a Football Guys channel.
No.
But we could definitely
over on that other channel
and hash us out. We got a couple open channels that we could work with. So, okay, everybody, hold on to your jock straps. You want to talk about Titans too? I mean, yeah. Let's do that before we get out of this one.
Yeah, because Buffalo's defense is not a shutdown defense, but they're not a pushover defense. Ryan Tannehill would look like a good play here. Look, you would expect with the Tennessee defense probably being generous to Buffalo's offense and Buffalo's offense being so good that this is a more open Tennessee offense. Adam Humphrey's also on the COVID list, so it makes it a little easier to play Corey Davis, and I do think we're going to see A.J. Brown back. Johnny Smith's on your lineup, obviously, but Ryan Tannehill becomes a pretty good play in what could be a quarterback duel. An offense duel, play caller duel, even. Arthur Smith and Brian Dable, both names brought up as potential coaches for Houston, and Deshaun Watson. And when you see the play calling alignment with the quarterback abilities, you understand why. Derrick Henry, you're going to play, it may not be a huge Derrick Henry game if Buffalo jumps out to a lead in this one. Also, Taylor Lewan, the last time we saw it, Tennessee had left with a shoulder injury, so we're going to watch that. Again, I hope this game gets played. See, this is what this is doing to me, Steve, because I'm like, I hope it gets played. But then again, if the NFL's not really doing things in a sound way that's just going to cause this to keep coming back on us, I kind of hope it doesn't get played. But I really would love to watch these two teams play. Another thing being discussed, by the way, is Buffalo. I think Buffalo and Denver are supposed to play week 15.
Yeah, it's later in the schedule.
Yeah, so since Buffalo and Denver do not have any positive COVID cases right now, they might play. It is week 15. They might play that game this week. I mean, the NFL, there's no official indications of this, but it would just make sense that maybe they could play Buffalo and Denver this week if New England and or Tennessee cannot. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Well, I'll tell you to stay frosty later, because be cautious and look out for danger. That's what stay frosty means, everybody. And that's what we all should be doing. Let's talk about Vegas and Kansas City. And what's the Vegas test? Is that from the Waller party? More hot COVID?
Not named yet. Although Maurice Hurst on the COVID list.
Okay. All right. So Vegas at Kansas City, maybe-ish. Seems like we're going to have to do that for a couple more games. We'll get to the Denver one in part 2. But Vegas side of things means fantasy GMs going, Josh Jacobs. Well, and of course, everyone's saying, let's watch out to see which rookie receiver can't play this week for the Raiders. And against Kansas City, they'll have to put the foot on the gas. Nelson Aguilar, please. And maybe Darren Waller, unless he's the positive.
Yeah, right.
Again, Wednesday morning, everybody, if you're listening to this on Apple Music or Spotify, Wednesday morning, we're just kind of dealing with what we know.
See, it's just like the Vin Scully thing day to day, Life is conditional. It's always conditional. You know what I mean? Even if you're not saying the conditions out loud, there's always conditions. So now we're saying a lot of them out loud. Raiders are slipping. Well, so nice if you're a Raiders fan, watching them triumphantly open their stadium against the Saints. But now you see the weaknesses of this team really showing. And Derek Carr is getting better. Again, watch the game against the Bills. You see some throws that are Derek Carr using his gifts. Derek Carr making some plays outside of structure. And without Edwards and Ruggs. We'll watch to see if Edwards and Ruggs are playing. Waller, you got to play. Obviously, Waller is going to be the pass offense. To say the pass offense goes through him, I think is really correct, because he's the target that has to be effective to loosen everything else up, at least while Ruggs is out. And then, of course, you also have Hunter Renfrow. If Ruggs and Edwards are out, at least you know Renfrow has a high floor in this game. Otherwise, Zay Jones and Nelson Aguilar contributing, but not necessarily fantasy options, but also contributing enough that Josh Jacobs is not becoming a Christian McCaffrey type, even with the top two receivers out, where he's not getting so many targets that it's picking him up. Now you're going on 3 weeks straight of Jacobs giving you low-end running back 2 numbers. Going up against the Kansas City defense, I think Kansas City's defense is an every week fantasy defense at this point because of the game scripts that their offense creates for them. They did rest Chris Jones. 2020 season, I think the Chiefs are supposed to play 3 games in 11 days. It's actually Kansas City and Buffalo is the Thursday night game next week. So maybe they'll rest Chris Jones again. I'm not sure. We'll see how that goes. If Chris Jones is out there, that will make things tougher on Vegas.
Things are tough, period, no matter where you're at, whether it's Vegas or Kansas City. And the Kansas City side of things, everybody. Kansas City side's like McCole Hardman, what the heck flex, right? And you're starting Tyreek, and you're starting Pat, and you're starting Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Go time against the Raiders at home.
Yeah, last time we saw the Raiders, and see, this is one of those things, right? I mean, do you sense at all that part of the reason that the Chiefs' performance on Monday night was ho-hum, a mediocre performance, was just because it's a little more difficult for players to get up for games when they're not sure if they're going to play, when they are waiting. Was that fair? Is that a fair thing to just put out there?
Yeah.
It's like kind of like the Thursday night phenomenon for a while. Remember, for a while, Thursday night games were just so flaccid. I mean, it just wasn't the same kind of football that we're used to seeing on Sundays and Monday nights, even though this was a Monday night game. So hopefully that's what it was. Some of it's Bill Belichick. Some of it's, you got to give credit to the New England defense. New England now has faced Mahomes 4 times. The first 2, Mahomes had his way with them. The last 2, Mahomes has been contained. The Raiders got blown out of the water by the Chiefs in both games last year. First game, it was when Hill was out and Demarcus Robinson had his big 2-touchdown game. The second game was a game when I think the running back scored 3 touchdowns. The point is 40 points was pretty easy for them against the Raiders last year. I think at least 28 points. So maybe Mahomes isn't your DFS quarterback. He had a quieter game in the second game against them. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you really expected him to have big numbers against New England because Bill Belichick likes to encourage you to run, and he did encourage them to run, but just wasn't there. They're going to there's a stubbornness to getting Clyde Edwards-Helaire on track as a runner that is helping his fantasy floor. We're not seeing the ceiling game. It's going to come eventually. Maybe it's this game again. The running backs had a big week in the second matchup. Hardman continues to be relevant. Wide receiver 3 flex level play on limited snaps. Again, it was Demarcus Robinson with the big game against them last year. Again, everything worked. So this should be a positive game for the Kansas City Chiefs. And you really cannot blame the Chiefs if they're looking ahead to Buffalo, because that's a titanic tilt.
Right.
Mahomes, NFL, COVID gods, whatever offering we have to make, cease. Can we please see Mahomes and Allen on a Thursday night? That would be excellent.
Wow. Don't screw it up. Arizona and New York Jets are up next. I'm losing track. The Arizona side, well, you're starting Nuke Hopkins. You're going Kyler Murray. Can you do a little bit more? And you're wondering what happened to Andy Isabel. What happened? It's the Jets, Bloom. So get ready for Greg Gaga Williams to throw the kitchen sink at you, and get ready for the Cardinals to then respond. But with that fast break offense, spreading around passing game, I'm trusting Andy Isabella as at least a what the heck flex and a bounce back week. And obviously you start Nuke. Fantasy GM's also wondering what's up with Kenyon Drake. And, how much will Chase Edmonds continue to cut in? How much will Drake continue to disappoint? And do the Cardinals get back in the W column in this one?
You start off the season with the win at San Francisco, your main rival in your division. You're feeling good. You handle Washington just fine. Then you lose to Detroit, and you get spanked by Carolina. So this team we were looking at as a potential playoff team or division winner a few weeks ago. Now they just need to stop this slide. The Jets, the schedule makers. So it could go either way, right? Because there's the Jets. You need to get right. But on the other hand, if you go out East, and you wonder about the circadian rhythms and all that, because Arizona did have the look of one of those West Coast teams traveling east and just looking discombobulated against Carolina. If you lose to the Jets, though, now you're really in a tailspin, right? You go from smoke coming out from under the hood to the fire coming out from under the hood. Pull over, Arizona, if you cannot win this game. Figure out what's going on. Kyler Murray, geez, I think we have to come out of last week saying he has to still improve as a passer. Maybe the fantasy numbers have improved, but he has to improve as a passer. And without DeAndre Hopkins doing well last week, maybe the ankle still affecting him. Watch those practice reports. Can we at least see him get in a practice this week? Even just a limited practice. Facing Pierre Desir. And you got to love, Pierre Desir had one of the most epic games by a corner ever, right?
Yeah, kept getting picked on and then picked off passes.
And had one go off his face for a touchdown. You don't see that every week.
Right.
So everything. The bingo card. It all happened for him. He's going to have to cover DeAndre Hopkins. That's going to be interesting. We're going to watch this Edmonds versus Drake thing. Edmonds is more effective as a receiver so far this year. It gives you a little more comfort with Edmonds as a what-the-heck flex or emergency running back too because of that PPR floor. He scored a couple of times. With Drake, he's kind of a what-the-heck flex too. Look, if you look at their scoring, they're roughly the same. I think they're like running back 35 and 36 on the year or something like that. Don't quote me on the specific numbers, just that they're close. And this is more of an Edmonds game than a Drake game because you can't really run up the gut on the Jets. Last week, we saw Gordon at the end with the long touchdown to ice the game. San Francisco, the Jets basically stymied in the running game except for a Mostert and McKinnon long plays, right? So that doesn't scream Kenyon Drake game to me, although he may break a long play and come through for you. Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald, as you said, adding Isabella back to the bench. It is the Jets. Tim Patrick had a big game against the Jets. Not taking anything away from Tim Patrick. It's there against the Jets. I think it's a little bit aspirational to play Kirk, although he could get a long touchdown on this one. Even some signs of life from Dan Arnold. And I'm talking up the Cardinals, Cease, because he's back.
He is back. By the way, Kenyon Drake in PPR leagues has scored 38.4 points. Chase Edmonds in PPR leagues has scored 38.2 points. They are right there next to each other, 36 and 37 in rankings for fantasy points. So there you go. How about it? Good job. Okay. The Jets side. Nobody? Is that the answer? Nobody. It's Joe Flacco, people. No thanks.
Well, it is Jamison Crowder. Louder for Crowder. 7 catches and at least 100 yards both of his games. We'll see if Le'Veon Bell is back. There were some reports he's going to be back this week. He can do enough as a PPR play that I'll put him in as a running back too. And I don't think it's crazy to make a buy low offer for him this week, just to see, especially if you're hard up at running back. And that's it. We'll watch Jeff Smith. I'll fill it up like this, Cease. Give us some impressions having covered Joe Flacco for part of a year as he resurfaces.
Yeah, grumpy. That's it. Grumpy, entitled. I'm still the man. Of course, you're an alpha. You're a quarterback. I want that guy, but there's also reality that I would love for Joe Flacco to deal in. So that was not fun at all. It wasn't fun when we talked about the Senior Bowl. There's another drink or bong rip, whatever, water pipe, because he was a jerk to us at the Senior Bowl. We had our whole Draft Guys TV set up and let's talk to this Delaware kid. And he was like, rah.
He was important by then. He was still mad at Tyler Palco.
I guess so. I'm running away. Okay. Next, Philadelphia. No COVID on this one, right? Knock on wood, please. No. Love of God. Battle of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia at Pittsburgh. And Eagles fans are wondering, how is Carson Wentz with that dog trash offensive line going to even be able to hand off in this game against the Steelers' swarming defense? So it starts there, Bloom, with actually taking a snap and then handing off. Good luck, Carson Wentz.
Yeah, good luck, Carson Wentz. Battle of Pennsylvania, as you said, season. I want to take a moment out. The folks, where the Lammey Quarter Horse Ranch is, right? The folks in eastern Colorado are very different than the folks up in the mountains, right?
Yes.
It's almost like Colorado's maybe as many as 3 states because you have the Front Range.
For sure.
you got like the
Boulder's its own state.
Right. Boulder's like West Berlin, like Austin used to be.
Right.
So you have a state with the borders on the map,
Mm-hmm.
but then you have distinct cultures, distinct histories,
Very much
distinct people in the state. And this is just a moment for me to say Philadelphia and Pittsburgh could not be more different, you know? And really, Pennsylvania is 3 states because there's the Western Pennsylvania, there's the coal mining country there's the coal mining and the Appalachian part in central Pennsylvania, and then there's Eastern Pennsylvania. As a Western Pennsylvania native, I'd probably say the Blue Bloods. I have relatives in Pennsylvania, though, so, you know, I mean, in Philadelphia. Very, very different. Just want to take a moment out to say that in the Battle of Pennsylvania. The division-leading Philadelphia Eagles, Cecil. Come on, this is a battle between division leaders. We can't downplay this one. Poor Carson Wentz. There may be some big plays there in the secondary because it is the Steelers. If the pass rush doesn't get home, and it usually gets home, there are plays there. But to who? I don't know if we're going to see Deshaun Jackson. I don't know if we're going to see Alshon Jeffrey. I don't know if we're going to see them for long if we do see them. Right? See, there's the classic like active, and then on the first play of the game, first drive of the game, we don't see them again for the rest of the afternoon. So it's Greg Ward, John Hightower, Quez Watkins might be ready for this one. Hakeem Butler might even be active. He wasn't active last week. You'd say Zach Ertz, right? All the targets for Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is joining A.J. Green right now. Is that, you used to be beautiful, Jackie Brown. Right. So you probably still play Ertz because the nature of this game is going to be a lot of passing and a lot of quick passing unless Carson wants to get his head ripped off. And maybe that's Miles Sanders. You're going to keep plugging Miles Sanders in. The same way you were going to keep plugging Joe Mixon and going to last week. Now, the Steelers' run defense is not going to give up a lot. But Sanders, with a creative game plan, because what do we know about the Steelers also, Cease? Over-pursue, right? I mean, they're easy to pull into, so some screen passes maybe to Miles Sanders, maybe.
Draw plays,
you know. Maybe if you're listening. I mean, I don't want to say that because we're Steelers fans, right? But there should be big plays for a player like Miles Sanders against an over-aggressive defense. So we'll be watching that in this one. I mean, this is a game, Cecil, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of this game as a Steelers fan because Steelers should be able to handle this game, which means they'll make it more interesting than they should.
Well, Bloom, you know what's going to happen. We already know what's going to happen. Yeah. The Eagles will keep it close because Mike Tomlin just does that. Like,
once we're up 10, we can't be trying to actually win this game by too many points.
Yeah, let's not do that. So, I mean, we've got to keep it somewhat close. Like, it'll make us nervous. At the end, the Steelers will stumble, bumble their way to a win. But it'll be close enough to be like, what the hell are they even playing on the same field as this team?
Right.
Let's just blow them out of the water. Deontay Johnson's back, by the way. So, you know, okay, wide receiver 2 with upside. A lot of people are going to start Deontay Johnson as a flex play. And I'm so jealous. Like, of course, Deontay Johnson, flex play. It's easy. Wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. And, of course, all of Big Ben's assets, James Conner softening up that Eagles defense. And they could, Bloom, do whatever they want to this team. But for how long do they do that? That's the Mike Tomlin riddle we have to answer every week.
You like Roethlisberger in this one, although the Eagles have had a prolific pass rush to date. But this is not Nick Mullins and C.J. Beathard. By the way, just saw that
And Ben's not as hard to get down as Joe Burrow when Malik Jackson was welcoming Joe Burrow to the league.
Right. It should be a good Roethlisberger week. It should be. James Conner still that clear lead back coming out of the bye. We watch to see if Anthony McFarland's going to get more. See, that's the thing. See, it's all messed up. Usually the bye week, you reassess priorities, you enact some plans, some rookies get them more ready. This wasn't even a regular bye week for the Steelers. They couldn't even approach it like a bye to reassess priorities. But McFarland will watch. Deontay Johnson's got to be in your lineup. Juju Smith-Schuster's got to be in your lineup here. Chase Claypool and James Washington, while not fantasy relevant, certainly make Ben Roethlisberger a better play in any given week. And if one of those guys goes down, you like them. Is it an Eric Ebron game? And we saw what George Kittle did. Eric Ebron is no George Kittle, all right? But certainly, if you don't have a clear, obvious option at tight end, I wouldn't talk you away from Ebron. But see, the question I had for this under my notes is, are the Steelers a good team? They beat the Giants and the Broncos. They beat the Texans. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to know any more after this game
No.
with the Steelers. This is where we're entitled Steelers fans. Speaking of entitled, our team is 3-0 and we don't know if it's good, so we're kind of a little bit stressed out.
Right.
They get Cleveland next week, Tennessee, if Tennessee ever plays a game again.
Right. But Tennessee will be their first test.
Right. Baltimore, Dallas. So a more interesting stretch of the schedule coming up if they can take care of business here.
Well, you're building confidence, you're building hope, only for it to be robbed away by a team like Baltimore. Let's be real. We've got some interesting news. This is the last game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Two more games. But Los Angeles and Washington football team news items on Washington. But let's get to the Rams first. Figuring out that running back position is a headache. Hell, their tight ends now have headaches, Bloom, because Gerald Everett will sneak in a touchdown here or there, taken away from Tyler Higbee. Wide receiver's been a little wonky at times with the LA Rams, and it kind of sounds that way because of, Jared Goff kind of wonky as well. But the Rams traveling across the country to face off against the football team in Washington. What are we going to see from one of the most Jekyll and Hyde teams in the NFL, known as the LA Rams?
It's so fascinating because now we look back, by the way, they scored 20 points against Dallas in week 1. That's kind of poor. Then we look at week 2, and they made the Eagles' defense look really bad. Everything worked. Everything worked exactly the way it was drawn up against the Eagles. Tyler Higbee, 3 touchdowns. Then they go and they face the Bills. They get stymied for a half, and then the Bills let up, and they pour it on. Does that mean they're a good offense? I don't know. Last week against the Giants, they did nothing. If it wasn't for Cooper Kupp, they would have barely won that game against the Giants. So I agree with you. I don't know if Jared Goff is a good fantasy quarterback, and this is a start. I think we're going to see Chase Young back. I hope we see Chase Young back. I just like watching him every week. That makes this a tougher draw for the Rams, and I'm not trusting this offense. I'm probably trusting Cooper Kupp at least as a wide receiver 3 flex, and similarly Robert Woods, but that's about it. Cam Akers should be back this week. We're not even going near this backfield while all 3 of them are out there until we have more data. But I compared it. I don't know if you listened all the way to the show with Ian Harditz. I compared the Rams backfield to a mechanical bull.
Yes. And you've never ridden a mechanical bull?
I haven't yet.
You think
I would get hurt.
On us?
I would hear crack. Speaking of crack, I would hear if I even hit the ground. The cushion around it can't be cushy enough. The point is, you think you have control on it, and then it throws you. Last week, you had control going in with Henderson, then it threw you. Maybe this week's Akers. Maybe this week it's Henderson. Maybe it's Brown. Maybe it's none of the above. That's frustrating. Higbee is that high ceiling, what the heck tight end, but he's not an obvious safe play because of the structure of this offense. Again, Rams are 3-1. Rams should be feeling pretty good. This is the kind of game they have to take care of business against a new quarterback.
A new quarterback, and that's got people in the chat room like our man Eric saying, well, I'm going with the Rams D. Right. All right. You're streaming defense because the Washington football team is going with Kyle Allen as their starting quarterback. That news came down this morning. So what kind of trickle effect this team should be going through Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin as much as possible? Do they do that with Allen? And can this be better news for the assets from Washington that you actually trust, which are McLaurin and Gibson, and that's it?
It can be better news. It can be better news just because Kyle Allen and Scott Turner know each other. So you know what you can do with Kyle Allen. I mean, even if it's a small part of the playbook that he runs well, you know you've got something. With Haskins, I think they were still trying to figure out his comfort zone and find some overlap between Scott Turner's playbook and Dwayne Haskins' warm or hot zones. So that's helpful. We also saw Kyle Allen really elevate DJ Moore last year. Now, Kyle Allen had a lot of problems with deep ball accuracy to Curtis Samuel, so it could cancel out, right? I mean, we could see more lines like we saw last week from Terry McLaurin, like 8, 9, 10 catches, 80, 90, 100 yards, maybe not the long play touchdowns. McLaurin's been a wide receiver 2, borderline wide receiver 1, so there's not a ton of room to improve. It's not a bad thing for him. It might not be a distinctly good thing for him either, but I'm open to it being better for Logan Thomas. I'm open to it being better for Antonio Gibson. One thing that Kyle Allen did consistently is fed Christian McCaffrey. So Scott Turner knows how to use that kind of player. So this
Right.
could be a continued takeoff for Gibson. And then, it's the Rams defense. So the Rams defense, Aaron Donald, they could make this just a rough start for Kyle Allen. Rough enough that they might say, should Haskins just go back in, or Alex
Where's
Smith?
Alex
I hope
Smith?
not.
Yeah.
Right. That's a whole other topic. I think with Washington East, now you're officially in that phase where, okay, Washington's not making the playoffs. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's the NFC East. Maybe they can. 5 wins might get it done this year. The point is, you're getting your program going if you're Ron Rivera. I think that this is something where now you can start evaluating players, seeing where you're at here. If you pull off a win, you get an upset here over the Rams, maybe you reevaluate that. But of course, that means probably that Kyle Allen played well. So all eyes on Kyle Allen.
All eyes on our final game we're going to talk about, part 1 of the Week 5 preview here on the Audible, Cincinnati and Baltimore. And I talked about Malik Jackson welcoming Joe Burrow to the NFL. Now's Baltimore's turn. And Joe Burrow, okay, we love what he's doing. Love what Mixon was doing, right? Okay, feed Mixon. Continue doing that. Set up your nice young quarterback. Protect him better, please, please. Joe Burrow is it's a treasure. Like he's a rookie treasure. To watch him play is so much fun, and Baltimore's gonna make him not have fun. So what does that mean about T. Higgins? What the heck flex level? Tyler Boyd, wide receiver 2 levels. Like what does that mean for these Bengals assets if Burrow is on his asset?
Yeah, well done. Baltimore's a tougher draw than Jacksonville. We saw this offense get right last week against Jacksonville. Burrow wasn't quite as harassed and harried as he has been in the first 3 games. It may get back to that. The funny thing is, the tougher the defense, maybe Burrow's volume goes up and his fantasy ceiling goes up. But I think you like Burrow if you don't have an obvious play this week. You also have his running ability. You have these corners for Baltimore. We saw Terry McLaurin produce against them. I think you have to stick with Tyler Boyd, of course. Tyler Boyd is well on his way to 100 catch a year. I think you still stick with T. Higgins, though, because with Higgins, you have the broken play opportunities. You have the extended play improvisation opportunities. And he's clearly that number 1 outside receiver ahead of A.J. Green. That's just sad. Joe Mixon, you're going to keep playing. So after last week, you're just not going to bench Joe Mixon. It's still a tough matchup. Derek Wolf's a little banged up for this one, though. Still a tough matchup. You want to see him getting more opportunities in the passing game. Drew Samples here, if you're really desperate at tight end, there was the touchdown that he should have had last week, but the should have is on Burrow as Miles Jack ripped the ball away. If it would have been a pass a little higher up, Samples' size advantage would have made it a much easier play. So that's on Burrow. So if Samples scores last week, we're kind of excited about him. I'm excited to watch Cincinnati as an upstart, Cease. This is almost more like a college football game where the upstart that's building towards the future, that program is trying to show, hey, we're closer to the pace setters than we were the last time we played. Go into Baltimore's building, try to pull off an upset, try to give them some trouble, because Baltimore sees as a team that after they thoroughly dismissed Cleveland in week 1, I don't think we're seeing anywhere near their A game.
Nowhere near that. And Baltimore, how do you get right? Well, you play Cincinnati. Everything works. Everything works for Baltimore. And Mandrew got back up on it last week on that mechanical bull bloom. I'll keep using that reference. Thank you very much. Then, okay, now everybody else. It's everybody else's turn. Mandrew did it. Okay, it's your turn. Everyone get up there and do it yourself, because you should be able to have lots of fun playing your Ravens this week.
You would hope, although last week was still okay. Lamar Jackson going up against Cincinnati, you may rank him as the number 1 quarterback of the week. We'll see if he delivers that. Minshew had a big game against Cincinnati last week. Now, we'll see if Logan Wilson and Geno Atkins are back. Still excited to see Geno Atkins with DJ Reader. Haven't got a chance to watch that yet. So make things maybe a little bit tougher. Ronnie Stanley's a little banged up also for this line. Their cornerstone left tackle. See if he's ready to play this week. That would make things easier. The backfield. I mean, see, we just say the same thing about Baltimore every week, it seems. But, the backfield, what we're waiting for is something to give here in the plate tectonics. Whether it be J.K. Dobbins breaking a big play that demands that he gets more touches, or Gus Edwards just running over a team as the closer, showing that he not just deserves that role, but maybe should be more of an opener. And Mark Ingram doing anything to show that he should remain relevant next to these younger, fitter backs. They're all what the heck flexes. Again, should be a high-scoring game, which gives you that ceiling, but you already know where the floor is on all three of these guys. Marquise Brown is doing okay for you, but we haven't seen the increased accuracy. We've seen it from Josh Allen, but not seen the increased accuracy downfield from Lamar Jackson. And Mark Andrews, you've already seen it. Some weeks he can be the number 1 tight end. Some weeks he's going to be the number 25 tight end. But generally, on a week-to-week basis, the best passes that Lamar Jackson throws are the passes to Mark Andrews. So you like that. And yeah, as a Steelers fan, we'll be watching the Battle of Pennsylvania, also hoping that Cincinnati can come up black eye in this one and maybe take them into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, soften them up a little bit. Show some weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. Like John Kitna did in week 17 before Super Bowl 36. Thank you for that, Kitna. Anyway, my asset is sore from sitting here just rolling out of bed and waking up with the Audible. That's what we do. And, we'll do it again tomorrow, hopefully with some more positive news on the COVID front. So basically afternoon games, we're watching the Denver-New England game, right? To see if there's any sort of further outbreak there. Okay, that's a wrap, everybody. Go forth, mask up, be awesome, do your thing, wash your hands, right? Mm-hmm. By the way, I loved your story, Bloom, from On the Couch yesterday about your dad with the T-shirts.
Yeah.
Telling you, what are you going to wear your concert T-shirt to work? And you're like, yes, Dad.
Point to the younger Sigmund Bloom on that
one. All right. Appreciate you guys out there. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We're the Audible. Everyone stay tuned and stay frosty.